Welcome back to the final speech of Thayus. That is not a speech anymore. At your feet rests the body of Thayus, hollow, the dense wrinkles shaped by the silent shouldering of an eternal burden now smoothed across his color-drained face. His soul remains still for the moment, defenseless, its energy expended in defeat. It lies sprawled across his body like a death shroud. With a deep breath you plunge into Thayus' soul, and where in Brackenbury it had been a maze of narrow corridors and dead ends, now it is expansive and borderless, its walls crumbling into heaps like the ruins of Engwith as you pass through them. You travel for what seems like ages, rushing to a known destination, a memory you glimpsed once before. At last you see it, no more than a pinprick of light at the end of a long tunnel, expanding slowly at first, then quickly as you near. You come out in the room you are standing in now, but it is new and pristine and filled with people, thousands of them, all turned towards the great Ardra pillar and the machine that encases it. Thayus stands at the machine, and you are one with him now. You look out at the crowd, at faces of shriveled old men and carob-cheeked little girls, at mothers bouncing infants to quiet them and fathers clasping their children's restless hands and watching you with somber acceptance. A woman with tears in her eyes gives you a small nod. Turn back toward the machine, your breaths constricted beneath the weight of unwanted knowledge, preparing yourself to set out alone on a journey without end. You close your eyes and open them again to find the machine still in front of you, beckoning. You take your place in front of it and place your hands upon a large mechanical disc at the base of the great crystal column, and speak a single word. Giant rings creak to life, building speed, setting arrays of carved draconic mouths aglow, and sending tremors through the platform beneath you. The entire room shakes now with the force of the accelerating machine, all sound drowned out by its deep, deafening thrum. Brilliant tendrils of light arc outward from the pillar in all directions, and you look over your shoulder to see them engulfing the crowd, burning them brightly like hot iron. One by one the tendrils disappear, leaving ashen effigies where people once stood, many of them disintegrating into grey heaps under the stress of the tremors. You look above to the Ardra pillar, and a glowing spherical mass has begun to coalesce atop the column where the arcs converge. It grows and pulses, translucent and bulbous, like some immense chrysalis suspended in slow rotation, as though it were being spun from the arcs of light. When the last arc disappears, the spectral mass hangs a moment, no longer rotating, so bright you must shield your eyes with an outstretched hand, and it seems to you as though it is looking at you. You bow your head in acknowledgement and look back up, to see it melt into the pillar like warm candle wax. The pillar flares with a flash of light, bright as the sun itself, then fades to darkness. The machine slows down to an abrupt halt, and when the last echo of its grinding cogs has passed, the chamber is still and you are alone. From all sides reality begins to bleed in through the memory, and you find yourself in your own skin once more, looking down on Thayus' lifeless body. You sense a listlessness to Thayus' soul, an overwhelming fatigue that hinders its immediate escape and makes it vulnerable to manipulation. You feel as though your victory has given you some kind of hold over it, and you are able to do with it as you please. What shall we do? What shall we do? Return it to the cycle? He has never returned to the cycle, I think. What will we do? I don't know. We will return him to the cycle. That is denigrating him. Most. All of these other things are just valuing him too much. This is like treating him like any other peasant would be treated. You will remember this, Thayus. Remember that no man can hide the truth forever. And all you've done was done in futility. Your memory shall be your penance. You can feel the pull of the intricate Adra capillaries that rise up from the depths below the chamber. Many are bound up with a great pillar, and you would pass to Boudica. But some are filled with the souls of the dead, bound for somewhere else entirely, and you know these are paths of rebirth. Stretching your presence as far as your spirit will allow, you make contact with one such path, and between it and yourself you open up what feels like a long tunnel, sheer and undulating like the gullet of some enormous beast. You shift your focus to Theus' soul, clinging weakly to its vanquished shell, and with all your concentration you wrench it free and send it hurtling through the channel until it passes into the Adra vein and can be felt no more. The stillness that follows, a single word echoes through your mind, a word you spoke, and you were one with Theus in an ancient memory. You realize it is the word that activates the machine. The souls disappear of Theus.
Yeah.
And now... Huh. You know, for some reason I'm really inclined to save the game here. So let me do that quickly. So there, we're here in this beautiful, or rather not that beautiful, maybe abominable temple of Boudica, probably. Let's see if we can explore. There's Theus still. He's lying there. He's a mark. A landmark now. And probably we need to go to the machine, right?
Sure.
That was a fight here. The machine resonates with the energy of thousands of souls. Standing near it makes your head spin. Ooh. It's really critical. I mean, I'm checking everything I have here. Doing nothing wrong. We want to look at this thing first. The giant Adra pillar. Really well made. You can dive into it and see the wisps playing with that machine that is in full motion somehow. And we just need to start. With your companions bearing witness, you step up to the place where Theus once stood before his people long ago. The great machine lies in front of you, idle, ready. You have seen this machine and others like it in operation. You understand how it works. It's a device for directing souls. As a watcher, it would be a simple matter to influence that direction. Though as big as the machine is, it may be the last thing you ever do. We're ready as always. If this is our fate, then so be it. Speak the command to activate the machine. There's a shrieking of stone grinding against stone as old cogs loosen and begin to turn. Only moments before the souls will be sent into the Adra vein. This will be your only chance at redirecting them. Should we return them to the bodies they were intended for? I think that's... I'm not sure. A lot of them might be dead, so that will not be good. So we'll send the souls back into the reincarnation cycle. It's the only thing we can do. You close your eyes and expand your perception outward, taking in the immense totality of the tens of thousands of souls orbiting the chamber. Your grasp on the souls is tenuous. You find yourself fighting to keep them all within your influence, and you can feel them slipping away from you as the machine gains speed. A brief moment comes when it feels as though you hold all of them at once, and their force is so great it feels as though they will tear you apart. In that moment you dedicate your entire being to bending their orbit, channeling their flow in a new direction.
At your command. the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale, pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun and Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Deerwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the lost souls of the Hollowborn were funneled back into the churn of Bareth's wheel to find their way into new vessels and partake in the life they had been denied during Whitewind's legacy. Though parents of Hollowborn would remain just that, the end of Whitewind's legacy would bring about a spate of new, healthy births, with many of the infants bearing souls once meant for Hollowborn children. The natural cycle of life and death had been restored to Deerwood, and with it came a renewed faith in the providence of the gods. Helia, who had expected the souls to be returned to the Hollowborn, was infuriated by your duplicity. The goddess of motherhood demanded new births in compensation, and made a bargain with Bareth to trade death for new life. The skies of Deerwood darkened, blotted with swarms of birds and other winged creatures, called together to claim what the Sky Mother believed to be hers by right. For months, the people of Deerwood were forced to stay under shelter for fear of the vicious, unexplained attacks from the sky. The incidents left entire villages decimated and littered the streets of Defiance Bay with corpses covered in 1,000 puncture wounds. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Deerwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But order was soon re-established by the Knights of the Crucible, who, despite their depleted numbers, had gained favor in the public eye for their role in the unraveling of the conspiracy surrounding Whitewind's legacy, and were quickly reinforced by returning forces from Fleetbreaker Castle. For the Knights, their resurgence marked a return to the tradition as well. Having seen firsthand the dangers presented by dabblers in animancy, the Order quickly abolished the practice internally, preferring the familiarity of their hammers and forges to the uncertainties of Essence and Adra. Their identity rediscovered, the Knights suppressed their political aspirations and began once again to train their recruits in the art of blacksmithing, recapturing the post-revolutionary ideals of Deerwood and regaining the respect of its citizens as a result. The destruction of the machine atop Ter Noaneth spelled the end of the reanimated corpses in Heritage Hill. Though at first few were willing to venture into the abandoned district, it was soon cleaned out and rebuilt. The district's horrors still fresh in people's minds, it would be some time before it was fully repopulated. But eventually the lure of cheap prime land would all but erase the memory. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay. But those who had escaped the melee in the palace hearings remembered the testimonies of the strange guest who had shown up that day and absolved animancy, implicating the leaden key instead. The rumor spread quickly, and soon the popular belief was that the assassin had been a leaden key spy. When the legacy had lifted, people came to see it not as a sign that the riots had been according to the gods' wishes, as Theos had hoped, but as a confirmation that animancy had never been the source of the problem in the first place. Deerwoodans instead convinced themselves that the riots had somehow purged Defiance Bay of leaden key spies, and that the end of Widewind's legacy was their well-deserved reward. The rage against animancers was quickly forgotten, and those who had survived were permitted to return to Brackenberry Sanitarium and rebuild it so they might resume their studies. The town of Deerford had seen the last of the cult of Scan. Dark rumors about the town's many curses quickly faded, and travelers soon returned. Abidon's renewal brought new vigor and purpose to a god long known for quiet, steady labor. Handicraft saw a revival in the Deerwood, and no smith wanted for an apprentice. Additionally, Abidon's restored interest in preservation led to redoubled efforts to survey Engwithan ruins. Animancers and craftsmen alike found much to study, but tensions with Air Glanfath rose. As for Stalwart, the Battle of Caron's Scar only strengthened their resolve to unlock the mysteries of Durgan steel and build new marvels with the White Forge. However, Stalwart's ambitions brought them into further conflict with the Raid Serens, as more and more impoverished communities gathered at the border and vowed to finish the work of the Iron Flail. It would be many generations before the region saw peace. The Flames That Whisper clan found a cautious peace with Stalwart, particularly once the villagers heard of the aid the ogres had offered against the Eyeless. The clan moved back into the Russet Wood, and as Stalwart grew in prestige, the villagers formed a tighter alliance with their ogre neighbors. Within a generation, ogre traders visited Stalwart, and village hunters were welcome in the Russet Wood. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every thane and earl in Deerwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Deerwoodinians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Deerwood, people would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. The Audra dragon known as the Master Below, her soul now housed in the body of the huntress Fallen Roet, passed out of Deerwood in relative anonymity, her final destination unknown, even to herself. She was last seen in the port town of Rhodes End, boarding a ship, an Audra talisman glowing about her neck. Palagina had gone against the Duke Spell's orders by inventing a new trade arrangement with the Anamenfath to accommodate the recovering Deerwooden market. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Widewind's legacy, the Valian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. For her outrageous insubordination and audacity, Palagina was banished from the republics. She traveled north in the Eastern Reach, avoiding Valian ports and entering the ranks of the kind wayfarers. Despite her bravery and dedication to those in her care, her strange appearance made her feel like an outsider wherever she went. Adair chose not to return home to Gilded Vale. Through a number of quiet inquiries, he soon found his way into the underground organization of Aethasians known as the Night Market. Ironically, in learning that the gods had been fabricated, Adair found his faith in Aethus renewed, and that his god was neither alive nor truly a god had become irrelevant. He rose quickly through the ranks of the Night Market for his optimism and for his bold leadership, his ultimate goal to make the Deerwood a place that would welcome followers of the Shining God once again. When the dust settled in sun and shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ix Arcanon, his former master. He saw where the Grandmaster had gone wrong, and he knew what he would do better. The secret of the gods would be preserved, and with it, the sanity and well-being of all Kith. He donned the remains of Theos' ceremonial garb and prepared himself for the long and lonely task ahead. After all that he had learned in the Watcher's company, Kana Rua could no longer see meaning in his pursuit of the Tanvi Oratoa. He decided to leave what remained of it within the depths of the Endless Paths and return home. Kana bid the Watcher farewell and sailed back to Rawatai, spending the tempestuous journey reflecting on the time he had lost to the pursuit of falsehoods. His family found Kana much changed, his fiery excitement replaced with a weary solemnity. Determined to change his wandering ways, Kana took up a quiet life as a lorekeeper at the college, teaching young students the traditions of their people. With Theos defeated and the souls released from sun and shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance continued to blame Woodica for the atrocities of the Saints' War. Believing Magrin to have been a pawn in the machinations of the Queen that was, and feeling that Theos' expulsion had been a step towards reconciliation with his goddess, Durrance tried for a time to reopen communication with her. When only silence came, he took it as a condemnation of his continued existence. Ultimately, he built a pyre and threw himself upon it, using his own shattered staff as kindling. In her 4-month journey back to Nasitok, Sagani found that the landscape she traveled had become strangely colorless, the food bland and unsatisfying. She watched the Deerwood, Air Glonfoth, the Valian Republics, and the lands beyond slide by with a dull sense of dread. She returned home to great celebration, yet the words of joy and congratulations rang hollow to her. Old beloved songs sounded toneless. The rituals of changing seasons became drudgery, and Sagani experienced her life back in Masuk as if in someone else's skin. So she fought to feel the worth of her actions, or, at least, to let her village feel them. She led ever longer and more ambitious hunts, mentoring the younger rangers who followed her. On one such expedition, her party was beset by a blizzard, and she pressed on where her companions turned back. She did not return to Masuk. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead, made no easier by your decision to bring an infant to Sun and Shadow.
Thank you for watching. If you've watched all the near 500 episodes of this, I congratulate you. We have successfully come to the completion of a great story. A story of adventure, of unpredictability, of a lot of things that we liked, that we loved, and a lot of things that we were speechless to look at. We have come to the end of a great journey with enchanting environments and really strange characters. The choices would let us despair sometimes, and sometimes would make us feel the joy of a great story. So, if you've stayed there, of course, we'll begin now soon with the exploration of the next Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity 2, the Berka Beta, has started. And we're going to look at all aspects of the game. And once the release version is there, we will start another playthrough. But only then. We want it to be complete, polished, and wonderful, like this playthrough was. So thank you for watching, and happy gaming to you. We'll see each other again in the next Pillars of Eternity. I'd be happy to have you there again. We'll let this run through just for... I'm curious what's going to come at the end and in between and everywhere else. Have a good time until next time, and happy gaming. Wow, that's a lot of names. Make this a little faster. I'm sorry to all the backers. But there have been so many backers. I think it was... Yeah. Look at that, we're at A already. This is going to be... So if you're waiting for your name here, I might speed it up. You can even speed it up to 16. Oh, God. I think this is enough. We're at C already. Now, wow, we're at D. So many people. I think this is an awesome credits outro. I think this is really cool. They should have a voice actor read out all the names. No, they would be broke by the end of this then. But it would be even more awesome, right? But how many people play this to the end? I know that some of my viewers have played the game to the end. They are really tough people. Playing this thing on expert even, and on Path of the Damned. We haven't gone for expert because we didn't know the game. We're blind. So, have you finished the game? It's a very long game. It is... If you ask if your money is worth it to buy Pillars of Eternity, including the 2 expansions, I would just laugh at him or her. Try to find another game that has this amount of epicness. It's really cool. Well, thank you for watching and happy gaming to you. We'll see each other in Pillars of Eternity 2. Have a good time. Until next time. This is Immanuel signing out, dear friends and thinkers.